Well, hello, creatives, community, and folks. Welcome to this hump day. Welcome to World Building Wednesday on the channel RPG with DBJ. Of course, I am your host, DBJ, and you guys are my co hosts. This week, we're talking about nomadic cultures. Yeah, nomadic cultures. Spon- Influenced by, amongst a number of things, there's been a movie released known as Nomadland, and there were uh, I guess a number of other influential things, and I like to use that as fuel for the creative process. And to a lot of times when you have a blank page to stare at, when it comes to any kind of creativity, especially with tabletop role playing games, but any kind of creativity, it can be a little bit daunting because if you have every option open to you, it's like, how do I focus my attention down? I don't know what to think of. But the minute you start creating walls and barriers for yourself, then you begin to know how to break the problem. You start to you know how to work the system in many ways. And so this our world building Wednesday, we are going to design a world and in which being a nomadic culture is what our setting is about. So, for those who do not know, on World Building Wednesday, we will take a theme, whatever theme we're talking about for that week, whether it's like psionics or Medusas or I don't know, a world that's been completely flooded, and any number of other potential uh, situations. We start to build a world around that. And so at this time, we're going to build a world in which society is constantly on the move. And we can come up with ways as to why that is. And then we're going to talk about what kind of aspects would be in this world and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Dead Man brings up, of course, a real life, real world nomads, the Mongolian steppes. Yeah. Now, the one part that I kind of lost a little bit of control. I let it fray. I let the conversation fray a little bit at the end. Is the fact that in our world we've always had nomadic cultures, and I think the we might be the context, the what your definition of what nomadic is might vary. So what I mean by it is that despite the fact that people might want to settle and they may have the opportunity to settle for what would be relatively short amounts of time, maybe there's a possibility of settling per season. But people still, the people in this world building still need to move. And we have lots of examples of cultures in which being nomadic is part of the culture. Now we know that around the world we've had people that have had to travel and then they settled down. I bring up the settlement of the United States. People were like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to go out and get my own plot of land. Hey, everybody, let's get in a wagon and travel for 2 months or something, and then find a place to sit." And then they stop. But that iterative movement technically is nomadic. Hey, the whole family and people are traveling together, and then they stop. Well, hey, Gaster Two Stools, like nomadic D&D story. Well, don't mind if I do. Yep. And like Dead Man brings up, many Native American tribes were also semi-nomadic, and I'm also including. Okay, so the semi-nomadic idea here, of course, we got a little bit of semantics. It's not a like I think he's wrong. I'm saying let's define our semantics, right? Where um, native peoples here in the states would move seasonally, maybe following like a migratory path of, say, the bison or something, and the main group would then settle, and then members of that group would then go out, and then they would be far more mobile and nomadic to come back to the main group to then lift that group up maybe 2 or 3 4 months later, and then they would move again. So there's been this constant like, hey, it's getting cold, let's move a little bit south and then stop, and then that part of the group would then break apart, and then they would move again. So yeah, and then there's also the idea of cyclical nomadicism, meaning like the idea of um, moving south when it's cold, so you go to a warm area, and then leaving the warm area here, especially here in the states where we have semi-tropical storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, and things, and then people may drought, um, forest fires, and flash fires, and then they might move north if it's too warm. So there might be this cyclical, like, hey, let's move in a circle, move in a straight line, up and down, up and down a coast or something like that. I'm including all of those into a world in which people have to move, but we also we want to come up with a couple of reasons like why people can't stay still. Um, Now, I'm thinking of this in. I'll get to your comments in just a moment. I'm thinking of this in two speeds. The slowest speed would be seasonal, something where while you could set up a camp and rest for months, there's something on the horizon where you've got to move, whether it's like not as fast not as fast as the idea of every day the sun rises on an alien planet, the star above blasts the landscape, and you've got this like singular band around the world that you can't go too fast but you can't move too slow. Well, no, let me take that back. That might be a possibility, but yes, something that moves people, but then also something, maybe there's something fast that our society has to contend with, like when the sun goes down, there's something out there that's like predatory, or there are waves of the undead, or magic has been frayed, or something like that. All right, Gaster says, well, I had an interesting idea that I would believe would be interesting. What about shops or traders that operate as seasonal travelers, having shop tents that show up, yep, in certain spots where you'll have to figure out which shop is where by going through by figure out which shop by going through word of mouth. You know what? It might be word of mouth. Maybe what types of ways do tribal people communicate? Maybe through birds, messages by birds, smoke signals, um, Australian bull roars, the spun sticks that make a specific sound and intonation spun at certain speeds. Yep, Gaster even brings up like, or maybe carvings on stones. Hell yeah. And there may even be much like the Pony Express or the Kenyan runners, there might even be a societal position where people do nothing but run from group to group. And also, if people are traveling in a semi predetermined pathway, you may know that, hey, if I leave a message, I understand these other people will come along and get that message. Or, hey, we've arrived at a particular place. Hey, there's the standing stones on the horizon. Let's hurry up and get there, because I know that people that have traveled past will leave a message for others. Yeah. And like Gaster says, imagine the shopkeeper from the Resident Evil games. Why would I want to do that? How he randomly shows up in places where you can sell and trade items to them. And I can imagine there would be while I understand that for player characters, it's very much like it's just me against the world. It's me and my buddies. It's like five of us, and we don't need to stop and socialize with anyone because we're badasses. I think we underestimate and underutilize the idea that just because people are separated through space and time doesn't make them give them any less of a culture. And so the idea of like stereotypical like Bedouin tribes greeting people and drinking and sharing stories, or the idea of like the real um, Romani that are, a nomadic culture, and the fact that they are able to share different types of bits of cultural heritage, whether it's music and language and, heck, just even dress and where to go to find safe food and water and shelter and weather, and of course in fantasy like monsters and whatnot, and their pathways as well. I think that would be pretty awesome. Dead Man mentions the video game My Time at Portia. Sorry. Yeah, RT, because you knew I was going to pronounce it. You know me too well. My time at Portia has the mysterious stranger who has extremely rare items for sale for 2 days per month. Then he travels elsewhere. Yeah, there's a little bit of FOMO on that one, like fear of missing out. If you find someone that's like, oh, this person has a specific thing, and then player characters are are now forced to travel both through time and space. So, for example, um, rare herbs might only a flower may only bloom at a specific season in a specific place. An apothecary or an herbalist may have things that grow that they plant, and they have their wagon, and they're surrounded by their entourage, and they only teach a certain skill at a certain time. It might be limited by season, right? Can't do it in the wintertime. Got to do it at the head of spring, just before the equinox or something like that. Gaster Two Soul says maybe it isn't just nomadic tribes. Maybe it's cities or settlements running on wheels, or mechanical train esque cities that run on a certain track. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Like cities on spider legs, cities on tracked wheels, um, a, aquatic movement. Let's not forget piracy and um, floating city barges and things like that. Aerial cities. Why not airships, or airships like balloons or ornithopters, or floating islands or something like that? Like I think it would just be pretty awesome. Yeah, that run on a certain track around the world. That's been the that was an idea proposed for, like, arriving on an alien world very close to a sun, like Mercury, and that was even postulated in the trilogy Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars. I think he got like a Nebula Award or something like that. And in it, uh, scientists have colonized, semi-colonized Mercury, and they have basically a city that rolls around Mercury, and it literally churns up the dirt in the front to make tracks for itself that spew out the back of it as it's like running on these tracks, and it's basically a moving city that moves very slow. I love it. You're fine. Yeah, Gasper apologized for messing up that comment. Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. Like Dead Man brings up, of course, the traction cities, the movie Mortal Engines. Uh, it ain't that a movie that was a terrible execution, great concept, right? I like the idea. Yes, I know how ridiculous it is to have literally like a huge chunk of the city moving on wheels, but who cares about that? The whole idea of like wheels so big that it churns up the earth, that it's like these Grand Canyon like traction wheels that you have to like you can walk through and have to climb over literally the tracks in it and stuff. And the what was it in the beginning of the movie? I yes, I did see the movie. I don't think I'll ever get that time back. But the idea of like multiple cities getting together to do, in the beginning of the movie, they traded, and you could see the platforms kind of clicking together, and they were everyone was like walking back and forth and stuff. I like that idea. I really like the idea of like these major cities. And again, it does bring up the reinforce the a giant mobile city moving, and then you have mobile scouts and military and traders and hunters and gatherers and stuff maybe leaving. Gaster says, hell, maybe a boat city just sailing across the great blue, but maybe something like like a sea monsters are out there. Heck, even on the back of like giant turtles or something like that as well. Even even aquatic races might have to move from their known homes. If they're amphibious, they may have to leave the oceans or lakes or rivers or something temporarily to survive for a limited amount of time to come back. Um, I could see that. Gaster Two Soul mentions basically what I'm imagining is something like a great big supercontinent on an Earth-esque planet where seemingly for some odd reason, maybe something that has to do with like the tectonic plates just causes people to move forward. Just keeping just excuse me because I can't read it. It's a weird just keeping people everyone hot on their heels. I'm imagining the same thing. And it could be we don't have to specify the exact danger, but I'm thinking of something that's like ecological as well as like monstrous. Maybe whatever's happening in the world, we can't survive in it, but there's like might be great beasts, like whether they are kaiju or the gods or the magic of the world has frayed or something, that there are these other monsters that can very easily survive the, I don't know, the necrotic storms or the vast heat or the the massive hurricanes and tornadoes, and or it might be a potpourri of dangerous elemental things happening as humanity moves, but maybe there's things that are behind them, behind being relative, depending on which direction you're moving, where these other things can live and survive, maybe even, or hibernate or something like that. Legally blind lurker, hey, what's going on there, lurk? Titan carriers in the air, smaller version of like a generation ship. Yeah, and remember, if everyone's on the move, the people, like the player characters, not only have to worry about being Billy badasses and drawing their swords or weapons, or casting spells, or using their bow and arrows or crossbows or whatnot. They also might need to get refuel, supplies, keep the morale up that's high, watch out for invaders, um, internal policing of people, and as was mentioned yesterday, the by Rickard was talking about, well, people don't want, they want to make their lives easier. They don't really want to move. They want to settle down. And so you might have this push and pull of conflict where the danger hasn't hit us. How do we prepare for the danger now versus later? Right. And that's always a issue with humanity. Like, something dangerous is going to happen in the future to all of us, whether it's one day, one week, give it a month, give it a year, give it 10 years. The further away that danger is, the less likely we are to prepare and anticipate for it. Even when the danger, when you push the danger 1, 2, 3 generations away, people just don't prepare for it at all. So that push and pull of, do we stop and not move and use our energy for one thing, or do we pack up and get out of here and use that energy for something? I think that's where a lot of drama could be. Like, do you get up and leave even though you have great resources around you, knowing that the storms are on your heels, or do we stay just a couple days longer to siphon the energy out of the matrix or something like that, or whatever the case might be? Deadman brings up the movie Waterworld had a floating city in the beginning. It sure did. What was it? It was a giant oil tanker, I think, in that movie. um I'm down for all of it, whether it's surviving on the back of a living beast or using that same carcass to move. And there might even be like the aerial people versus the land-based people versus the oceanic individuals, where each one at a particular period of time might have their own benefits. Like the aerial people are like looking down on everybody on the ground, like, huh, we're fine until the storm season hits, and then they're like, "Ooh, we need to land somewhere." Really, I love it. Tesla Rangers like the Exxon Valdez. Bam, enough said. Yeah, pick up the microphone, man. I know you just dropped it. Yeah, oof. Ugh. It was the Exxon Valdez in Waterworld, I believe. Um, it- did was it an analogy of it, or was it the real Exxon? I can't remember. I know they were making they were specifically pointing it like doing a shout out to it, but I can't remember if it was the real ship or something like that. I can't remember. Oh yeah, Dead Man says it was the basis. Yeah, the oil tanker was the base for the villain in Waterworld. Yep. That was another great idea, terrible execution thing as well. Which I'm gonna come back to Waterworld in just a minute once I get this comment. Gaster's on the roll here. Says, oh, and don't forget about carry weight problems. Unless you have some sort of cattle for you to use, you'll need to carry your own things. Maybe you do get something akin to a cow or bison where it'll carry your items, but you might have to feed it. Hell yeah. This is a great way for us to pull out our mounted combat and animal handling skills or and rules and such. Also handling, repairing, and maintaining carry weight. Actually, having to worry about that, and this could be abstracted, right? Like light, medium, heavy weights, extreme weights. It might be that the player characters need to um, like squirrels, because we get squirrely on this channel, stash things away in hidden locations, knowing that they might have to come back and get them later. It may also involve having arguments over what to carry and what not to carry, as everyone is like, oh, I'm going to grab my own things, and everyone's like, listen, we're like 10 times over our weight. We're gonna have to dump stuff over the side because our herd can't carry all of these things. And also, like nomadic people, when they follow a migratory animals, it's both it becomes both a food source and a protective source, meaning you're protected by the herd itself, and that herd also might naturally navigate certain dangers, as well as needing to protect that same herd from outsiders, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Dead Man says the tanker was a mock-up. The tanker was a mock-up of. Well, of course it was. Yeah, it was. They were using jet skis underwater and jumping up above. I remember there was a version of Waterworld at um, SeaWorld in Florida. They had a stunt spectacular that was based around it, and they ended up shutting it down. But yeah, you guys at Waterworld. In Waterworld, Exxon Valdez is the flagship of the movie's villain, the Deacon, the leader of a band of scavenging raiders. In the ship is a portrait of their patron saint, Joseph Hazelwood. I forget. That's right. Can we get a little bit more ironic? You know, in for spoiler alert for a movie that didn't do well, even when it was brand new, Waterworld was based on the earth being flooded. So imagine again, I'm going to use the word cyclical, where humanity leaves their homes, right? So, imagine vast cities and castles and dungeons and wizards' towers and things that people have to leave behind to then circle back to come back to. Like maybe these cities were built there was a pre-culture, or they were built at the height of mankind before humanity broke the world, for people to have to come back home. And coming back home are the dungeons of the places. Like instead of random dungeon crypt and undead and monsters and things down there, maybe the dungeon are people's homes. Like, I used to live there and now something moved in when we came back home. Let's kick them out temporarily, as we move back into our homes yet again, to have to leave them again to have something move back. Because in Waterworld, at one period of time, the main character, the mariner, swims down with some people and shows people what the world really was like, because the world was flooded. He swims down to these major cities and finds little objects down there. And it might be hell. Maybe there is a whole countryside that, because of the changes, that literally floods and no one can live in their cities again until the floodwaters recede. And of course, we're talking fantasy. Maybe the floodwaters rise hundreds of feet in the air per season. um, Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, going back into the chat for my co-host, Gaster says, "Oh, and don't forget about dead bodies or NPCs or abandoned camps, where you can loot items, grabbing things like half-empty potions or possibly still safe to eat foods, though there might be a problem on the food being rotten or rancid." Yeah. Hey, I left a sandwich here last year. Still looks good. No, I love the ransacking idea because getting things that are unfinished. My wizard's going to go into the wizard's tower that's been abandoned, and there's like a half written formula about something or whatever. I the the idea of gathering things that are unfinished and you don't know how safe they are is also a great thing. Or gathering today I can grab you need three components, whatever those components are, to build a device or make a chemical concoction or whatever it is. Hell, just even the issues of becoming a forging items while you need to move could be an issue as well. Like we need to arrive at the mountain steps 3 weeks ahead of time so I can set up my forge so I can forge weapons out of the ore that we gathered 3 weeks ago to do it now, because if we don't, the storms are going to batter us, that kind of thing. It might be that back and forth of travel, but stopping, but time, but the tension. I love that idea, and I think it really works. I think it works wonders for telling a good story, because as a game master, you can always twist the dial of the tension timer. Anyway, Tessa Ranger says in the Monty Python short film, The Crimson Permanent Assurance, the building remains a building, but it's mobile enough to be used as a pirate ship. Yeah, that's weird, but I don't remember that one, but I love it. I'm gonna have to take a look at some old Monty Python. Gaster says, "Yeah, you probably don't want to throw away that ugly sweater now, do you? You never know, because like that might be it might be ugly to you, but it sure does keep you dry." Um, all right. Mm, 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 mm. Legally Blind says, saw Waterworld at the drive-in. Wow, I'm so sorry, man. I'll try to pay you back. That means it was the beginning of Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. I forgot about that. Man, I haven't seen that thing in a long time. Mm, Meaning of Life, the life of Brian, and all that kind of stuff. Gaster, you're so funny. Says they spray your car with a firefighter hose, right? Because I feel like that would have been the only way to have seen Waterworld. You guys are making fun of it. Yeah, I'm not going to forget. Vampy, thank you, dear Gaster. Vampanoid says, underwater undead. They forget grandma, but grandma didn't forget them. You know what? We often, as popular and as numerous and as ubiquitous as undead are in our fantasy gaming, we tend to underutilize them for things like that, right? Like there's what's the big role playing thing about like the good or bad necromancer? And my issue with the necromancer is like it's not whether you're good or evil. It's like nobody wants you using grandma as your plaything, you know. But also, um, e- n- no matter how fast or slow we're moving in this nomadic world, knowing how to handle the undead might be an issue. Like if you're on the open seas because the seasons happen and the floodwaters are rising and stuff, and you start just dumping your dead overboard, that doesn't mean that if they become undead that they're going to stop coming after you, which that might be an additional pressure where the undead are constantly walking towards you. It's the slow walkers versus fast walkers, right? Even in The Walking Dead with the slow walkers, you don't want to sit still when you see thousands upon thousands of them moving in a wave, moving as a herd, as they call them. And so the undead, knowing that they're like walking, mind you, this was in the book World War Z. People were dumping the victims that were bitten, turning into the undead, were dumped over into rivers in the ocean. Well, the problem is, days, weeks, months later, they'd walk up out of the bottom of the ocean and come back up on land, and they were just like, "We need to stop doing this," you know. So yeah, you might have forgot about grandma, but grandma didn't forget about you, and so that might be just even a mistake made early on that is still haunting humanity. And again, like we're using character classes as um, motivating faction in this world. Like I could imagine clerics and paladins needing to be, or those skill sets needing to be used. Like, listen, you need to go ahead of us, or heck, you might even need to stay behind to stave off the waves of undead that are chasing us as we keep moving through this cycle of this nomadic world, because of the mistakes our ancestors made by dumping off the undead, because they were so afraid to move on and not give the last rites to the people that died previous to them. So the yeah. Anyway, but that's just even undead. Boom, boom. T-shirt time. Lurker says the hardest thing about being a necromancer, no one will let you raise your family. uh, go into family court. Listen, the necromancer's fine. Look how he raises his family, nice and neat, and everyone's like, "I object." He's not we're allowed to raise grandma. Yeah, grandma's in the court right now. Brains. Thank you, grandma. You can step down now. Brains. No, grandma. No one's asked you a question yet. Brains. My mom told me to make friends, so I did. Vampanoid. Boom. Oh man. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Now, I would I sorry guys, I got to move away from this because I can see us going down the dad joke dad joke funnel right now. But okay, so we're probably going to have to rethink, not just rethink society, but like rethink the things that we normally think of in a stable, non-moving society, right? Like like, oh, Michael brings up something. Okay, the existence of intelligent undead make this even worse. Ships captained by whites. Ooh, that's right, because I'm going to let me read the rest of the comment because you just made me think of something that's pretty terrible. Okay, so the existence of intelligent undead make this even worse. Ships captained by whites with minor crewmen like zombies would be unyielding, and one of the worst things that I love about race and whites in Dungeons and Dragons is that when every person they kill multiplies their power base, right? So if you fight 5 owlbears and you kill an owlbear, or an owlbear kills you, the danger is a 1-for-1, right? So if there's 4 against 4 and an owlbear takes out one of your members, it's 3 against 4. The terrible part about wraiths and whites is if it's 4 and 4 and they take out one of yours, it's 3 against 5 now. They are a force multiplier. Yeah. Is it okay, so it's I couldn't remember which one. So it's whites make zombies and wraiths make specters. Yeah. Remember, hey, any of you old guys out there, you remember second edition? You remember AD&D where they would drain levels? Anybody remember level drain? Jesus, that was terrible. Both painful in game and outside of game. Oh my goodness. I knew a DM that would love to throw them against us. We ran every single time. It didn't matter what level we were. They were like, "Oh, Wraith White, pff, I'm out." Cleric was just like, "I'm going to turn undead." We are like, "The hell you are." Lick the finger, smack in the back of the head. Yep. Enough said on that one, but yep, They were the worst. I loved them. I wish there was a way to emulate that, which I kind of think they've emulated by saying like, "Hey, we take out one of yours, you're going to be one of ours." Um, oh my goodness. Tesla Ranger mentions, where does a necromancer get skeletons? He works his zombies to the bone. Oh no, no. I love it. Oh man. Oh my goodness. We are heading down the dad joke spiral. I love it, you guys. Oh shit. Oh man. Michaels has been playing since 79. Ooh, yeah, you're an old timer like me. Specters, wraiths, vampires, all level drain. Yeah. You know, something else that undead would benefit in a world like this is a hibernative effect. Um, it's like oh no, no, no. Lurker's like, I remember, just like Petridge Farms. Petridge Farm remembers. Which, but like, why do they remember? Were like Petridge Farms like assassins or something? Like, yeah, we're gonna get you back. Yeah, we remember. We remember what waffles taste like, and we remember the undead grandmother you raised from our farm. No, the idea that the undead might be able to survive this like moving onslaught of the world changing and shifting or freezing or something might be pretty damn terrible. I mean, what if yeah, Vampano is like the North remembers. Yeah, the North. Okay, you're giving us flashbacks of the last two seasons of Game of Thrones. Oh my god, I don't know. This is yeah. I side note, I liked how Game of Thrones ended. I hated how they executed it. Didn't bother me none, but oh my god. Um, Michael says, "Hell, make the ship undead, sails made of skin, rigging made from ligaments." Ooh, now you know it would be pretty interesting, and this actually calls back into like a bigger thing of how to make an adventure personal, like not just not a random. Oh, here's a dungeon and here's some monsters that you fight, but players might be assaulted by the sins of their past by having the cycle of being a nomad moving forward to actually come back home to find their loved ones that they left behind now undead waiting for them to return home and like oh, that's not a random dungeon, that's the place where you grew up, and oh yeah, grandma's pissed off that you just left her there without giving her last rites or something because she was killed by some vampire or undead or something like that. And it's a good way to turn the undead might morph because of insanity. Like, could you imagine unwittingly being left behind and then having to be, I don't know, trapped in ice or suffering in necrotic storms or in this flood zone or something like that with no one to talk to, no place to move, maybe buried by mudslides or desert sands or something, to only come out of it like 3 months or 4 months later. And now you're all like insane and screaming like a banshee or something like that. Um, yeah, even Deadman says like, you know, a ship made from a dead whale, like the carcasses of huge dead monsters moving across this world, or even fueled by whatever whatever broke the world might be fueling the or creating spawning the very things that are a danger to us. So giant kaiju and swarms of undead and dragons. What are some other big baddies we like to think of beyond them? Maybe even a celestial fiendish war might be happening, spreading across the world, and people are like running away from it, and it's like moving around or something like that. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Like even Mike Gould brings up the fact that there's no reason it couldn't be an animated object, a like literally an animated walking city or something like that. Titans, There you go, Titans that are spawned or created or walking upon the earth. That would be pretty. What an interesting sight that would be to look out and see the setting sun, and you see the setting sun in the clouds and the mountains, and then you see like the thighs and calves and legs of titans because they're so tall that they're going up into like the darkness of the sky because they're so tall that they're fading up into the distance and they're doing battle with each other and you're just like we need to get the hell out of here, keep moving, because they're like stepping over mountains to slash each other with a sword or battle axe or something like that. I know you're talking to each other, but Mike says, I like the idea of an airship made from a whale skeleton, the balloon section held within the ribs, and the pilot's cabin in the skull. Gotta inflate that those lungs or stomach cavity. I love that idea. Ooh. Giants and krakens in their spawn. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that a lot. I see you, Vamp. Um like it might even be something minor like that's remember those little small crabfish or um um like seagulls or something small little what were we talking about Monday, hermit crabs or something that you could crush under your foot, or snails or something today become a squid or octopus you can hold in your hand today becomes a kraken later on as you move away from it and something causes it to become gigantic titan kaiju size later on. That'd be pretty awesome. Hell, even I wonder if humans would become giants if they're left behind, turned insane or something by the power of this broken world or whatnot. The last thing they did or remember becomes their new driving force. So to try to catch up with escaping family. Ooh, that makes it super personal. Um, uh, this is pretty dark. A kid leaves behind their pet, or they like bury their dead cat that ends up becoming like a dead dog becomes a death's head dog, or like some kid leaves behind their cat and it becomes a displacer beast hunting them down or whatever, or that family fight you had and you stabbed your brother in the throat and now they're still alive using that same knife. They're still bleeding throat and they're like, I'm going to get you back. That's pretty dark. I love it. Your own nightmares, maybe even something more ephemeral, your own nightmares become physical things that start to hunt you down as you move through the world. Ooh, ooh, I love it. Cities built on walking titans. Mm-mm-mm. This is taking it a bit too far. What if unspeaking humanoid titans are carrying cities forward of the dangers behind them, and periodically like Atlas they put them down and then they to take a rest, and then later they and like you're living in the shadow of these like I don't know, unmoving stone marble titans or something that are miles tall, and then they reach down and pick up the cities again to walk forward, uh, to walk forward, and everyone's panicked, like they're going to get tired, they're going to put us down and not pick us back up again, and you'd have to use like airships or something to get to the city that's being held on their backs or something like that. That'd be pretty weird. I'd love it. Dead Man's a Spelljammer had several ships made from skeletons of very large creatures, and that might be it might be the like a necromancer. It might be necromancer writ large. Like we don't delve in those skills, but those skills might be used as a necromancer ties together and strings together the decomposing sinew and skin to make these things. Knowing that it's going to help us get the hell out of here, but B, yeah, like the necromongers from the Chronicles of Riddick. Yeah, I like the world building in the Riddick movies. I know those movies weren't the best, although the very first one Pitch Black was pretty good. But um, but yeah, I like the that world building. And yes, maybe necromancers are the maybe this is how they become nomads or something. Michael says the knife animates the dead that it kills so long as it stays embedded. Ow, ow. That means every person, every time you kill something, you're going to have to lay it down to rest. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, Lurkers mentioned something. All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Mike, our one of our number of coworkers here, co-hosts on the show, says I like the idea of using seagulls in a navy setting the same way that ravens were used in Game of Thrones. You know what? That makes a lot of sense, especially like um, parakeets and exotic birds in tropical locations, seagulls in naval locations, ravens like used in Game of Thrones. Different types of birds would leave messages, and you could get those messages over extended periods of time so that the player characters might find like, oh, we a bird landed on our wagon or our ship or our airship or something to leave a note, but the note is 3 weeks old. So now not only do you get this information, but you also know too much time has passed. So you don't know what happened to the people that even left that information in the first place. So again, you could start to stretch out, use time and space as a gauge, you know. I like it. I like it. Now, Lurker mentions like in those rests by the Titans may take 50 years. Ooh. Now, because we're talking about needing to keep moving, it's possible that maybe this is like the Titans don't move, but when they do move and you find one moving, you're just like, "Yay, we got here in time!" And other times you're like, "Damn it, they're still asleep." Okay, everybody get in the wagons and get the hell out of here because we still need to move ahead. I think the idea of I forget where this was mentioned. Oh, this was mentioned in a Discord chat over at N World. We were talking about a nomadic world where this would ruin a feudal type society because feudal types of society were really based on land. So value in this world would really have to change. I think, as was mentioned far earlier about trading items and things, I think trade the exchange of items like spices and being able to retain food sources, like smoked meats and salted meats and things like that, uh, clean water, or the ability to obtain clean water through filter systems and things of that nature might be extremely important. Create generating fire, steel, iron, and steel might be bronze might be extremely important as well. Um, yeah, Vampidoy, I'm with you there, Vampidoy, about using seagulls as communication. It's like, yeah, gonna name gonna name mine. Yeah, seagulls. Even would subterranean people use like groundhogs or moles as communication? Bats might bats would probably be more effective as as a way to communicate, sending out notes on the with bats with little tiny backpacks or something. Um, let's see. Oh, Michael says your undead on the sea reminds me of Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Oh, yeah, a cursed ship filled with the undead, and another ship where death and living death reside. I love that kind of stuff. I love the the reframing things out there, whether it's undead or giants or dragons or something. Although, in a world where everything has to move, I wonder how dragons would cope with it. I mean, dragons are powerful as hell. Maybe they would have to leave behind their giant treasure hoards, or they would have to hibernate under like the desert sands or in their mountainside or something like that, only for human beings to cycle back knowing that they know that a dragon is asleep around here somewhere and might have to reside in the shadow of these dragons or whatnot. Mm-mm-mm. Let's see. If Michael says if these walking titans were made from stone, perhaps greedy cultures risk losing their titan by mining the titan for valuable materials. Ooh, ooh, power. Okay, ooh, we can start to move maybe from titans to powerful elementalists, like druids using like the elemental earth. Could have these giant humanoid earth elementals or something moving or pushing or lifting these cities, whereas the airships might be moved by elemental air, and none of the druids have complete control over it because the world is still in this roiling chaos and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, I can the druids and the druid circles something like using their powers to beseech the elemental stone giants to start to lift up and move the city, but when earthquake season comes in, it's like those giants then crumble into falling rock or mud or whatnot. It'd be kind of cool. Yeah, Lurker mentions that a process to make clouds solid yet still floating to make more land. Yeah, I like that idea. I like it a lot, especially if it's like a time limit thing. Like we only have 3 months of this. That's the most I can do with the ritual. And they're like, oh, we have to appease the gods, or the elemental princes or something like that. Or maybe all of that is just thrown into chaos. Maybe there are no elemental princes. Maybe there are no um, the titans aren't as easy to beseech as we'd like. Vampanoid's like, oh, like cotton candy. Yeah. Um, Mike's like, and I just listened to Iron Maiden's rhyme of the Ancient Mariner yesterday, so your timing is impeccable. Iron Maiden. The also I like the idea that even okay, so we're traveling across this land, and this might make very strange bedfellows. So let's do something stereotypical, like the goblinoid hordes are also moving, maybe riding on the backs of giant water buffalo or something, and the PCs come across them. And on a normal day, we're hated enemies. Like we'd go to battle immediately. Oh, we see them on the horizon. There go our experience points. Let's go kill them. But to survive storms or the onslaught of the undead, they might have to work together to achieve a goal, to survive, to then go back to hating each other when the danger has passed by, or the danger has been left behind long enough that they're able to get back to their old wars or something like that. I like this idea. Mike says a titan infected by Zorn, eating it from within, would be a great mission. A stone titan infected by a purple worm might be considered an undead titan. And the purple worm would be like a rot grub to us. Wow. Wow. I love that so much. I kind of hinted upon that the other day. It's like, why aren't why do we consider or we place our fantasy monsters separately? Like, why wouldn't they have their own, removing humanity out the question, why wouldn't they have their own interactions of like symbiosis and parasitic relationships and hunter prey things, stone titans being infected by being eaten apart from the inside by Zorn and purple worms. I love it. Yeah. Zorn and Earth elementals would not get along too well. Maybe. You could make the case for either one. I love it. I love it. Mike says combine the two, coral or seaweed encrusted stone titans walk the seafloor with cities upon them within air bubbles. Undead cities might have no air bubble. Ooh, underwater cities. Maybe even some of those underwater cities with the stone titans pushing them or walking them or holding onto them like a snow globe or something. Might even have to, like Atlantis, might have to resurface one day or during that. See, now we're getting into the part where the what if the player characters are part of a society that has to move through all of these elements? Like, for example, for 2 months they have to be in air cities, and then for another 5 weeks they're on the ground, and then for another month and a half they're underwater, and then they have to go through deserts and then jungles, and then they're in a subterranean realm still moving, and then they have, with giant digging machines or what have you, and then they have to come above land again. That would be a constantly ever shifting, changing environment that they're always moving again ahead, and always needing to keep people around for the expertise they need, as well as scouting ahead to see if there's safe places to rest, plus keeping connections with other nomadic groups that are around them. Vampanoy says the half orc artificer Elon Tusk wants to save humanity by building a rocket to the moon. Elon Tusk. Man, that Elon Tusk is a weirdo, isn't he? I mean, really? Everyone's like, well, does make electric powered uh, um, carriages that aren't horse drawn. Oh, yeah, I paid one of my family members in gold through PayPal. It was just the gold was just beamed to them. Well, I took a little 3% off the top. Sif Neblin, I know I butchered that. Sif Neblin necromancers piloting small villages of gnomes within undead purple worms below the ground. Here we go. Here we go with the obnoxious and absurd, and I love it. I love it. You know what? Hell, I love the idea of just like Surf Neblin, necromancers, hags, naga, sphinxes, like needing to Rakshasa, like they might be the proverbial movers and shakers of the world because they know a person who knows a person, and yet we all know that they're always trying to connive to get something on their side. Yet the player characters are like, damn it, we have to work with these people again. And the Surf Neblin are like, yeah, you can take a ride. We have a craft that will take you through the subterranean realms, but you owe us. You've got to work with us. And the PCs are like, pull your weapons because they might be backstabbing us. And the Surf Neblin are like, oh no, you're helping us too. We're evil. Hey, look in the monster manual. We're evil, but we also want to live too. So, yep, I love it. I love it so much. Lurker says goblins would have to be riding giant crocodigators. Man, you know what? Goblins might be the proverbial nuisance of this world, breeding in large numbers, hanging out in the corners of the world, almost like the equivalent of vultures hanging over dead bodies. Like whenever you see flocks of goblins around, everyone's like, the goblins keep eating off of the periphery of these moving communities where they're riding on pterodactyls or they're riding on vultures or they like you said, they're riding on giant crocodiles or death head dogs or something like, and they might just keep nipping at the heels, at the ankles of society. I mean, these goblins might literally be literal scavengers of like ghouls feeding off of the recent dead or something. Hell, ghouls might even be necessary to fight off the undead because they like to eat flesh. Although skeletons, zombies are the appetizers. The skeletons are what's left on the plate, maybe. Michael says riffing on Dune, change the underground concept to piloting undead worms below the hot sands of a desert world. Yeah. If you want to go even more gonzo, the world could be overrun by these environments. Like, could you imagine a jungle world, but the desert sands blow in from behind them? And yeah, Lurker mentions carrion goblins. Carrion goblins, yeah, hell yeah. eating the dead flesh of grandma. Grandma's all pissed off, like, you realize you let them eat me? Like, sorry, grandma, you weigh too much. Oh man, yeah, like maybe massive jungles and mountains are blown over with sand, and then that sand is overcome by snow and frost, and then that's it. And it's like a rolling devastation that moves through the world. Albeit the volume again turned way up. Michael says during our Out of the Abyss campaign, the reason the Kotoa village fell to a Demogorgon attack was the fact that a mad Kotoa with a fin comb over named Donald Trout convinced them it was okay. Oh no! Oh no! No, you didn't go there, did you? Oh, stop it with the Kotoa comb over. I'm sorry. I'm picturing the Koatoa and Sahogan and stuff like that out there on the campaign trail, all crazy and stuff. Oh shit. So bad. You're so bad. He says there used to be aquatic variants of goblins, hobgoblins, ogres, ghouls, etc. Saltmarsh reintroduced the hobgoblin variant. Yeah, I always like environmentally adapted monsters. I've always liked that. Yeah, Lurker says rolling biomes. Yeah, rolling biomes that really don't one biome doesn't fit with the other. Like hell, maybe there's literally mountains spewing out of the ground. Like you could visually see mountains starting to like burst out of the ground, like volcanic peaks and things like that. And you're just like, oh shit, we're into the volcanic season, guys. Everybody hold on. And then you just look back behind you in the horizon and you just see mountain peak after mountain peak bursting through the desert sands and the jungles and stuff. That'd be kind of weird as well. Like it would be strange and it wouldn't make any sense, but I like the idea that it doesn't make sense. Um, and also it may bring about both dangers and resources, and spawn things that normally wouldn't be spawned because of the act that's happening. Mike says, and to be honest, I cannot understand why undead need an aquatic variant. They don't breathe. Well, you could have undead infected with something like undead with worms living inside them, or snakes, or lizards, or frogs, or what's something else that undead carrion birds circling over top of undead. Like you could symbiotically or parasitically combine that with something else. Undead infected by rot grubs. The undead don't care, but the shambling mounds that are kind of like caked on top of the undead might be kind of cool. Or you kill the shambling mound only to find out that it's not really a shambling mound. It's just the undead had infected the seaweed that was on top of it to turn it into a shambling mound, only to find out there's like a skeleton underneath it or something. Yeah. Oh man. The Mike says idea of the crawling earth. The jungles walk like banana trees and the sands creep along, pushed by winds. The environment is always changing like a clock. I love that. I love that so much because the players will always need to, like, if you're moving through the desert, do you hold on to your winter clothes? You might need to, right? Like, we need water. Why are you carrying your winter boots? And you're like, youngin', you just don't understand. In 3, 2, 1, boom. And then all of a sudden the winter storms hit and you're on the edge of the desert. You're like, no, I need an extra pair of socks. Michael says, so depending on your culture's need, your people have to pursue your favorite environment. Oh, see? Ooh, I like that. Like they're nomadic peoples, like the proverbial stereotypical, and I'm being very stereotypical, Bedouin tribes surviving in the desert that keeps moving. So if they stay still, the desert will literally leave them behind. So they have to move ahead into the desert. That's a really strange. I would love to see this world from a satellite because it would look very strange. But I love it with the people in the winter region. You could find people left behind from their old biome. trying to survive in your biome and having to get them back home. That might be kind of interesting. Or different mobile nation states would exchange people from different biomes on the borders of their biomes. The desert peoples exchanging with the Viking peoples of the north, which is not really north, it's just the winter season. And you see this literal dividing line of sand and winter, handing over loved ones or individual. That's like, yeah, that would be strange. Yeah, Mike says it would be like Jupiter, a world covered by winds and storms. Yeah, there would be no normalcy. You would have to find it in your own biome, right? There would be jungles filled with poison plants. It's always dangerous. No matter where you go, it's dangerous, and you have to keep moving. I love that. I love that a lot. Anyway, guys, got to the end here. Going a little bit over time. Thank you so much for being part of this World Building Wednesday. Do me a favor, if you could, please like, share, subscribe, spread the word to tell your grandmothers out there, undead or not, about the show. Please take part on the show. This show, there's our, there of course is our Discord server and YouTube and Twitch, and heck, it's even being broadcast over Facebook. So please take part in any and all of those platforms. Let them know. And lastly, please check. Boom, boom, on point every single time. Please go to levelup5e.com. It is part of a huge project by N World and me, of course. Plug self-promotion. I am part of the writing team of dozens of others that are creating advanced 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. No, it is not Pathfinder 3.0. It is literally 5th edition writ large. So love it, love it, love it, love it. Really, Kitty? At the very end, it looks like I got to get out of here. Yeah, Vampanoid says vultures in the sky are a telltale sign of undead hordes. Roll perception. A couple of miles ahead, you see vultures in the sky. Gulp. I love that stuff. I love it a lot. So anyway, yes, Kitty, I know your rear end. I love it so much. Dead man's popping over to Twitch and YouTube, putting in the link. Thank you so much, guys. Everybody. Really? Have a great day. I will see thee tomorrow on Third Pillar of Exploration Thursday.